Cool. All right, unmute. Let's power up. 1, 2, 3. Power up.
Power up.
Cool. All right, guys. So happy Thursday. I get the privilege of, taking us through today's power up. I don't have all the Texas stats, but I'm sure we're knocking it out of the park like we always do. And Adeline will get updated with those next week. Let's do this. Let's start out with maybe 3 people sharing somebody in this world that's on this call that has exhibited our values this week. Does anyone have someone they want to brag on?
I'll start it off, Sarissa. So I want to brag on Joseph. Joseph is, of course, my brother and on the team here in Houston. And with everything going on right now, I just want to say thank you, Joseph, because teamwork is really making this work. You're taking on a lot, and I appreciate you.
That's awesome. Teamwork makes the dream work. All right, 2 more.
I want to shout out Daniel for hard work, Daniel and his whole team, because you guys don't know, he's not going to brag on himself. He pended $4 million in a day, and I'm still super proud of him because I know what it's been like to get to this point. So just super proud of him and needed to shout him out because he won't do it himself.
Yeah, honestly, like his hard work, well, one of the values, he's humble. He didn't want to brag on himself, obviously, but his hard work, his teamwork of his team over time, just and now he's getting the extraordinary results, right? So I agree, very proud. There's days he wanted to quit, guys. I know some of you have hit that point this week where it's maybe a week where it's hard, right? And we were talking about this, how, if you think about an exponential growth curve, sometimes you're winning so slow, it feels like you're still losing, right? The beginning of any exponential growth curve looks flat, and then it starts to take off. So if you're in that flat part, just know if you're doing the activities, the results will come. Okay, one more brag / values exhibited here. I'm just gonna sit here till one of y'all comes up with somebody to brag on. We said 3.
I'll do it. Here in Austin, we actually have an incoming class of a few of our new agents, Tracy and Joseph and Yvette, and they have been working together, scripting together, especially like Yvette and Tracy. They're both Spanish speakers. It's awesome to hear them scripting together on real estate conversations, and they have just been attacking their skills and their activities, and I really just love their hard work. I can't wait to see their extraordinary results, but their teamwork has been amazing.
Thank you. That's awesome, Casey. Congrats, guys. Those results will pay off too. And also, what I will tell you, sorry, like one of you. Thanks, Casey. What I will tell you is, as our new people come in and they really start to elevate their game, it inspires the rest of us. And it ups the game for everybody. And some of the people who've gotten, I say some of the people, some of us, as we start to get either a little bit lazy or a little bit comfortable or a little bit whatever, we go, oh crap, gee, like we got to step it up. Look what they're accomplishing. And so it really, don't stop, guys. Keep it up. That's awesome. Okay, today, y'all, we have a solo panelist, Elizabeth Gassos, woohoo, in the house. She, man, guys, like, she's just awesome. I have so many awesome things to say about Elizabeth. She was my showing agent that started with me 4 years ago, before we were even Ben Kinney team. She had a goal of making like 40K that year. I mean, that was like her goal, and I was like, okay, I think I can get you there. I'm like, okay, come on. And every year she has just increased her skill set, her competence, her confidence, her leadership, her presentation skills, like all the things. And I'm so proud to still be in business with this amazing woman. She is a little under the weather because of vaccine number 2. So we're grateful that she's feeling good enough to even share with us today. But Elizabeth is going to take us through the buyer consultation for this market, because it is definitely different in our scripting and the hard conversations we have to have up front. And so please, if you are able to and you are pulled over and you have a notebook, take some notes. If we've got some ability, I'll try and throw some notes in the chat, and let's kick it off, Elizabeth.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And if you guys have any questions or whatever while I'm talking, just put them in the chat. But I wanted to just kind of go through what my normal buyer consult looks like and how it's just sort of changed. If you guys, you know, have been on the team for a little while, I mean, I follow Ben's buyer consult pretty exactly, with some added twists from Jen Davis's Mega Buyers Agent class. I don't know if anyone has taken that. I'm actually taking it again right now. So kind of like mesh the two together. If you guys don't know, Jen Davis has like a showing assistant model, and they were closing about 225 units a year with her, an ISA, and 2 showing agents. So that's kind of like my goal one day, to be able to do lots of buyers, because they're kind of my bread and butter, but also just I love them. Currently have, I want to say 12 or 13 buyers pending. So it's, and a lot of them are like new construction and stuff, but there's a ability to have quite a bit of buyer business even in this market. So I'm gonna start off with just like, what do you guys say when you first, you know, walk into a buyer consult? So I have a little script that I'm gonna read off that is just a really good introduction to the buyer consult. So you say, hey, we're gonna talk today about what's happening in the market, about what the home buying process is like, and what you're excited to see in your new home. Then we'll sign some paperwork, decide if you're gonna work together, and decide if we're gonna work together. How does that sound? Just really quickly, right? You're just telling them, hey, we're gonna talk about the market, we're gonna talk about what you want in your house, and then we're gonna sign paperwork and decide if we're gonna work together. Does that sound good? I'm guilty of not always talking about the paperwork, about the buyer rep and stuff, but I'm trying to get better at it. So just by saying at the very beginning, hey, we're gonna do some paperwork at the end, is that cool with you? And they just say fine, then that at least sets the expectation and you can get it all done. And then introduce them to who's gonna be showing them properties, who's on your team. So if you're just, you know, solo, you're still gonna say, hey, when we go under contract, you're gonna meet our transaction coordinator, or you might meet some of the members of our team, you know, that might show for me every once in a while. So just let them know how the process is gonna work. So for me, I have a showing agent now in Farah. So my script is like, hey, either myself or Farah or someone else on my team will be the one showing you the properties. In this market, I never want to be the reason why you can't see a house as quickly as possible. So I will hire people to open doors for us. And so that sets the expectation. It's not always going to be you. And honestly, I started doing that whenever I kept getting exposed to COVID last year and having to quarantine. Then I got COVID. So I had to use showing agents. And honestly, no one cared that I wasn't the one showing them the property. And I had a new compliment that my clients were giving me consistently. And they always said, you're so available. You always answer the phone. You always call back. So by not being constantly in the car and showing and being more available to my clients, they did notice. So definitely work towards, you know, that, or see if you're not to the point yet where you can hire a showing assistant, just know that that's something to work towards. And then I just reiterate LP Mama. Normally I've already had a conversation with them. So I'm assuming you're not just meeting someone blind, you've had a conversation on the phone with them. Sometimes it's just with one person though, and there's more than one decision maker. So if you already went through LP Mama, or if you already talked to this person, just reiterate, hey, I'm gonna make sure that everyone's on the same page. Let's talk about what we talk on the phone, especially if it's now a husband and wife in front of you. Make sure that they're both on the same page, because it's always awkward whenever they want 2 completely different things and you don't know what to show them. So you have to be like, all right, guys, we do have to agree on this thing. Kind of can't show you houses if you don't know, this location or the price or whatever. So you're gonna have to make sure both people are on the same page, especially now, right? Like, especially now that decisions have to be made so quickly. Let them know we gotta make sure that we know what you want right now, because you're not gonna have a night to sleep on it or talk to each other about it. You're gonna have to both be able to make decisions quickly. And then the next part is motivation and timeline. So this is where you're gonna spend a lot more time than normal. And I figured I'd share some of my normal scripts. These haven't super changed, but you have to make sure that you have these conversations. So right now it's, hey, what's your plan B? If we cannot find you a home by the time your lease ends, or by this time, or, what's your plan B? Another way to word it for me is, all right, guys, worst case scenario, would you rather pay, or worst case scenario would be paying rent and a mortgage or 2 mortgages, or moving twice? What's worse for you? So if they don't want to move 2 times, you know, either in temporary housing or with a friend or whatever, if the timing doesn't work on their move, they might want to do that, or they might prefer to just go ahead and pay twice. Now, does anyone have any questions or anything for me? I know I've been talking a lot. I'm not used to talking so much. Yeah. Does everyone have any feedback on any of those scripts? Do you guys use them yourself? Everyone's so quiet.
I like that question. You get them talking and you find out a lot about them when you say, is moving twice or paying for 2 places for a short amount of time, which one's worse and why? Yeah. And I think that you'll get a lot out of them, even as far as their personalities.
Yeah.
Or as far as who's the worrier, and if it's a couple, who's the worrier, who's the financially more conservative one. I think you'll kind of learn who has control in that relationship a little bit.
Yeah, because that's going to be a big issue right now. Because if they say, no, we can move whenever, or we're on a month-to-month, or we don't care about terminating our lease early, then great. Then you know that that person's more flexible. But if they say, no, we cannot afford to pay, rent and a mortgage, and we can't afford to move twice, then you have to set expectations on, okay, well, if that's our parameters, then, you're going to be looking in these areas, or blah, blah, blah. It's going to just, be a different strategy for that person. Also, another script I use, and I don't know if you guys use this script in your normal buyer consult, is talking to them about how to work backwards from their timeline, like how mortgage payments work. I don't know how better to word it, but in order to establish a timeline, especially with someone that's renting, and you say, hey, when is your lease up? They say August 31st. I'm like, okay, I'm going to teach you a lesson on how mortgages work, especially if it's their first property. All right, so if your lease is up in August 31st, then let's say we want to close on a property no later than August 1st to give you some time to move. Just so you know, if you close on August 1st, your first mortgage payment wouldn't be until October 1st. So you actually have a little bit of time. So if we're working even further back, we can even close on a property in June, and you'd have your first mortgage payment due August 1st, and then you'd only overlap 2 months, or we can close, 1 month, or we can close in July, and you still don't overlap payments. Just so you can kind of move their timeline up. Does that make sense to everyone? Did I explain that correctly? Do you guys tell your clients that? Do you explain how mortgages work? Because a lot of the times you can move up people's timeline a whole 2 months by just telling them that, hey, the mortgage isn't actually due until, it skips a month, blah, blah, blah.
Let me ask you this, Elizabeth.
Mm-hmm.
During that conversation, since we're talking about this market right now, are you also explaining to them that because it's a seller's market, sellers may be asking for a lease back, in which case,
we're going to want a little bit of buffer time. Yeah. So I'm kind of trying to push people. That's why I like to know what's the worst case, paying twice or moving twice. Because especially now, I was like, honestly, you need to start looking much earlier than maybe you would have before, in case you can't find something. But in case we do, is it okay if you pay, 2 payments? And sometimes they're just like, yeah, I don't care. Or I'll go ahead and terminate my lease and pay that fee. I also always ask them to do their homework and find out exactly how much terminating a lease costs with their, apartment or landlord, just so that's all planned out. And we know what we're doing moving forward. Any questions so far about that? It's all about avoiding stress, right? We're just trying to make sure everyone understands how the process works, to be able to have the least amount of stress possible. So you don't want to find out that someone can't afford to pay their rent and a mortgage after you already have a closing date set. That's not helpful to anybody, and that you might not earn, referrals from that business, right? You want to set all the expectations of this buyer consult. And really, my ultimate goal, or your ultimate goal too, should be to have as little time from the buyer consult to get under contract. I want to be able to ideally have the buyer consult and get under contract within a week. Because everything's like straight on their mind, they're motivated. Obviously the inventory we can't control, right? But you want to be ready to go and have everyone understand what's going on.
By giving them worst case scenarios, even with, just, you said your goal is to help them avoid stress.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when I think about it, stress comes from like shocking moments or the unknown popping up. And when you take away the unknown, or you take away those shocking moments that could come, and you tell them, hey, this could happen, and you lay it all out for them, then when it happens, they're not shocked, and it's a little hopefully less stressful because at least they had time to think about it and process. Would you guys agree? And any other comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, this process is going to be stressful in any market, but it's extra stressful right now with inventory issues. So you're just wanting to, mitigate as much stress as possible so they have a good experience, with this process.
Are you going to add something to that?
Yeah, so I just have noticed that a lot of our agents, and I mean, I think it's just natural. We don't really want to go into all of the negative things that can happen in the process when we're meeting with someone for the first time. It can feel like we could potentially be creating problems that weren't there or something like that. But I promise you, it is so much more valuable to come from like a position of contribution, right? And be honest with people and show that like you're not afraid of that eventuality, right? And that we have a plan. It's much better to say, we're going to experience this challenge, and when we do, this is how we overcome it, than to not talk about it. And then when it shows up, it looks like you weren't prepared.
Yeah.
Right. So
that too. Later.
Yeah, I love that you're doing it.
And also just a tip is to make sure to have some vendors and stuff lined up for people for example, in the situation where someone might have to move twice. We use Callbox. I don't know if you guys, I think Callbox exists in Austin as well. But Callbox is a move storage service that like picks up someone's stuff from their house, stores it in their facility, and then whenever they need the stuff, they'll deliver it directly to you. You don't have to like go to a storage unit. And we have a deal with Callbox so that all our clients get like 10% off. So that's just like something to present to them. It's like, hey, like I also have this in case we need to move twice. It's going to be way less stressful. I promise you won't have to go, pack your stuff up, go take it to a storage unit. Like they'll come to your house, and then when we have the new house, they'll deliver it to you at the new house. Things like that. Just I met her because she sponsored Bold once, and ever since then, I've been recommending her to clients. So definitely have like different options for them there. And if you know of any like short-term rentals, like I have a friend that runs the Residence Inn in US up here, and so I know that if I needed to, she can have people stay there kind of stuff. So just have different vendors that you can help people when they need it. And so next, setting expectations. So we've set some expectations already, right? Just trying to get a little bit more about their timeline and things, but definitely set more expectations. And again, I mentioned this already of who's going to be showing them properties. So they don't expect you all the time if you have someone that's helping you show. Expectations about the market would be the next thing that's changed quite a bit, especially with regards to financing. I don't have buyer's appointments anymore with people that aren't pre-approved or that aren't connected in the pre-approval process. There's kind of no point right now because if they are FHA, for example, and that's your only option, I'm gonna say, okay, if you're FHA, we're only looking at properties that have been on the market longer than 2 weeks or new construction, that's gonna be ready next year. Is that okay with you? And if they're like, no, I wanna move now, it's like, this is not, I can't do anything for you. Like, and we're not gonna say it's super negative, but it's just like, it's just not realistic right now. What's causing you to go FHA, and maybe you get them with credit repair and blah, blah, blah. But it's just setting realistic expectations, right? Like I know in our market, I have not had an FHA buyer all year. It's just not possible unless they're going to construction for us, right? I don't know how it is in Austin, but I'm assuming it's very similar or worse. And even conventional loans, I was like, are you putting 20% down, and do you have a good amount of money to play around with to pay for title, blah, blah, et cetera? If the answer is no, then we can go with like homeward. And like that financing part is way more important now than it ever has been before, because just some things are not options. So know your lender options. And then of course, same thing with VA. Like they can use Homeward though, so we can always get them pre-approved there. But there are, and it's not about saying no. With FHA, it's just like, hey, okay, here are your options. We can look at homes that have been on the market longer than 2 weeks or new construction. Which would you prefer? And a lot of the times it's just like, okay, new construction is fine. And they're fine with waiting a year. But again, like, you're not going to go show houses and put offers in if you know that it's not going to be possible for them to get those homes. Even conventional, right? You're competing a lot with cash these days. So have a very good understanding of their financial situation. I know it seems awkward too, to be like, hey, how much money do you have to bring to closing? I don't say how much money do you have for a down payment, because it gets confusing with people with cash to close versus down payment. So it's like, how much money do you have all in for this process? Because then you have to, like, okay, here's how much the appraisal costs. Here's how much the inspection costs. Here's what I set the expectation that earnest money is now 2%. Don't tell them 1% anymore. In this market, earnest money is 2%. And expect at least $500 option fee up to $1,500, because that's what we're seeing in our market. So all that stuff, I want to set the expectation. So did you have some?
Yeah, what are you guys seeing? Because Austin's even hotter than our market, right? What are option fees looking for? What are option fees looking like for you right now?
Yeah, we're seeing like 1,000 to 2,500 usually for option.
That's coming, guys. Dallas, it's coming.
Yeah. That's why the minimum is now 500 in my script, right? Because I haven't had to have anyone do more than 500, but I know that other people on the team have done 1,000 and 1,500. So I set that expectation too. I'm like, and I've known people that have done this. Now I can say Austin's even higher. And yeah, set that expectation. It's not $100 anymore. It's this. Well, especially with appraisals too, and with option fees, my scripts have changed too, where it's like, here's the deal. Here's what I'm saying minimum, but really you have to decide how much are you willing to risk to potentially get this house. If you're willing to risk 1,000, risk 1,000. If you're willing to risk 500, 500. How much are you willing to risk? I never want to tell people that they have to pay 1,000 or 1,500. I mean, at least right now, right in our market, it might be just a different number for you guys in Austin and Houston and stuff. But definitely let them decide how much they're willing to go. Same thing, I think someone posted, yeah, shorter option periods. Yeah, I'm setting the expectation now that it's 5-day option. And what I've been doing in my emails to agents, by the way, when I submit offers, and I normally do 7 days in the contract, but in my email, I say, hey, I can move this down to 5 as long as I can book the inspector before we execute. And so as long as they tell me on the phone, hey, yeah, you got it. I was like, okay, can I go ahead and book the inspector? They're like, yeah. And then I put it back down to 5. So you might do the same thing with like 3 days. Just say like in the contract, put a little bit higher, but then in your email reiterate, I will change this to this days as long as I can book the inspector before we execute. And I have a lot of out of town clients right now that are like flying in and stuff. So it gives people time to like buy plane tickets or whatever. So that's just kind of something I've been doing that's been working. And some people don't even ask you to change it. You say you're willing to, but then they don't actually make you do it. So then I have 7-day option, which is a luxury right now. Any questions?
Elizabeth?
What's up?
Yeah, Elizabeth. Talk a little bit about how you handle the appraisal discussion. Yeah,
so with appraisals, thankfully right now, we haven't had as many issues with appraisals, at least here in Dallas, that we did in January and February. So it's gonna come up, and you can just, my script for that is, the market has been adjusting quite rapidly. So in the past, how appraisals work is that they see previous sales in the neighborhood, they compare it to the current contract, and they say, hey, I think this house is worth X. So that's how we price homes whenever we price them for sale. We look at past sales in the neighborhood for similar homes, and that's how we come up with a list price. Well, how we price properties is actually based on a curve. So this is how the market works, right? Like this. So right now we're actually on an upward curve. So we price ahead of the market. So if the market's going down, we're going to price it at a lower price than the market is right now. But right now the market's increasing. So we're pricing homes higher than there is evidence for in sales. So that's causing lots of problems with appraisals. which means that you might have to pay a difference from the contract price through the appraisal price. And thankfully that gap has been closing, at least here in Dallas. The example I use is someone I got under contract in February. I say the house was listed for $380. We offered $395, expecting to pay a $15,000 difference. By the time we had the appraisal done, it appraised for $405 because enough other properties had closed to push the value up. So that's kind of what's been going on, at least for our market. I haven't had anything not appraised in about a month or two because the market's catching up a little bit and the appraisers are also catching up, understanding that the market is going up quite a bit. So that's how I explain how appraisals work. But then, yeah, definitely, if you had to pay out of pocket a difference, how much are you comfortable paying? And if you guys have like a title company app that tells them like roughly what their cash to close is, I normally have that up. It's like, okay, right now estimated cash to close for this price home is X. How much more do you have to play around with should you need to come up? So that is a conversation we're having right away. Because if it's zero, then it's a completely different strategy. Does that help, Lynn?
I feel like in my buyer consults, I'm having to explain, hey guys, yeah, you might have 10 or 20% to put down. However, what we're seeing is that if a property doesn't appraise, in some cases, we find that our clients are putting less money down and using that additional cash to make up some of the appraisal gap. And are you describing in your buyer consults the appraisal waiver ahead of time, or are you waiting till time to write the offer?
No, that's what the conversation is. You might have to, like, how much are you comfortable with? And that's how much we'll put in the waiver. Yeah. Another thing is repairs that we're talking about up front now, because just you can't expect that many. I'm sure you guys use the script of the big five, you know, HVAC, foundation, roof, electrical, and plumbing. It's like, those are the big five. Those are the items that we definitely want to make sure are in good order, and safety concerns. So if, you know, something's broken that can cause someone to fall, or, you know, something is overheating kind of thing, safety concerns as well can be addressed. But then set the expectation, nothing else is most likely going to be fixed. So what condition home are you comfortable in? If they say, I want move-in ready, I don't want to do anything, I'm like, okay, that's going to come at a premium price. Is that okay with you? You're not going to get a deal. You're not going to get a deal right now on anything, right? But especially on a turnkey or, you know, home that's just been remodeled and it's in perfect condition, that's going to go for the highest price. It's like, I like to set the expectation of, if you want the best deal in this market, buy the ugliest house in the nicest neighborhood. That's what I would recommend you do right now, and put your own improvements on it and build your own equity. And then of course, let them know if you buy a house that needs major repairs, like foundation or something like that, you obviously also get a good deal, but you might not get financing for it. Because I always have those people that I'm just like, oh, you know, I want to buy this house super cheap and remodel it. It's like, you can't get financing though for those kinds of homes, and they don't understand. Questions so far?
Jaime, were you going to say something or add something?
Yeah, I was in a class earlier this week with our risk management, and we were talking about appraisal waivers. And you know, of course, risk management, they put the fear of God in you. And they said that if your clients are going to do an appraisal waiver, it's best to have that in writing from the lender, that they have verified the funds, that they do have the funds to close, which was news to me. So I know a lot of us are doing that. So that's a good tip.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
As a listing agent, I'm asking for not only down payment, pre-approval, but also, okay, if you're willing to make up an appraisal gap, I would like proof of funds as well.
Yeah, that's a good call. So the next part of the buyer consult is needs analysis, which used to be like, you know, the most fun part of like, what do you want your house to look like? And now you do have to set the expectation of like, hey, there's price, condition, and location. Let's look at price and location, and then here's the condition you're gonna get. Or what's more important to you of those three things? And they say, no, I want like condition and location. I was like, okay, then price is going to be X. So a lot of the times it's just like, unfortunately, it doesn't quite matter that you want an open concept house with the bathtub, blah, blah. It just doesn't exist in this particular price point and location. So do you want to change location or do you want to change condition? So it doesn't super matter right now, unfortunately, for clients, what they want in the house. It's more going to be constrained on location and price. But if a condition is super important, again, you're just going to change the location. Those are the three things that are going to be changing. So I have clients right now who want a specific thing for a specific price, but they're very open on area, but honestly, it doesn't exist in any of the areas they're looking in. And every week I'm just like, still another week with nothing popping up with your criteria. Do you want to change price, condition, or location? And they're like, no, we'll wait to see what pops up. And I honestly have enough business right now to I'm like, all right, whatever. And I'm just moving on. But always check in with those clients and say, hey, nothing popped up again. What do you want to change? And they were people I had Sarissa and I had under contract last year on a great house. Then Corona happened and they got scared and canceled, and now it doesn't exist anymore, which is a bummer. Out of town clients. I have probably 90% of my clients I haven't met in person yet. They're just coming from all over the place. I'm sure in Austin it's similar. So set the expectation. How are you comfortable making offers based on videos and pictures, or will you be coming to town? If they say, no, I want to come to town, it's like, great. There's no point in me sending you properties until you're coming to town. So like, tell me what day, I'll put it in my calendar, and then I'll send you properties that week. I don't even bother sending properties before then because they're all going to be gone. But if they say, no, pictures or videos are fine, then great. And then you can kind of go at your own leisure, taking videos and things. I highly recommend when taking videos that you don't FaceTime your client, that you actually take a video file so they can look at the video again and again and talk during the video. Say, here I am at the front door. I'm going to take a turn right. Here's what's the right, this is the formal dining. And I kind of have commentary throughout the whole thing. Like, hey, here's the formal dining room. Lots of people are converting these into studies or, homeschool rooms, like blah, blah, blah. And like, I just go through the house, and it might be a 10-minute long video, but I talk the whole time. I open hey, here's the water heater. It looks pretty good shape. It's a Bradford White. I like that brand, going blah, blah, blah. Like I literally just do a whole walkthrough of everything possible. I open every door. So they have a really good in-depth walkthrough. Because think about it, like buying a house sight unseen, it's scary. So just make sure to provide as much information. Don't send like a silent video to people. Have comment on there. I always like to like make them a little fun. If I'm in the bathroom, I just kind of like throw one of these up whenever I'm like in the mirror, because they haven't met you, right? And you want to have them see your personality. So point out everything. Like, here's the brand of the dishwasher. Oh, it's a Bosch. These are really quiet. Like things like that. So add extra flavor, add extras information to those walkthrough videos, because it's gonna build rapport, since you can't really build rapport in person right now with those out-of-town clients. And does someone want to say something?
I don't see any people unmuting yet, but if I'm missing you, please, I'm trying to watch for that.
Go for it, Casey.
Yeah, so I do have one thought. So I love that, and I do that. I work with a lot of like out-of-state investors, right? And so I'm walking through, and so I'll give positive and like negative feedback, right? As I'm doing that, like being completely honest. And then at the end of the video, I like to do a recap, right? And just like give my like lasting impression of the house, and like turn the camera on me and like speak. That way they can see you as a consultant and you can like be a professional there.
Yeah. And don't forget to take a video of the outside of the street too, not just the inside of the house. I see Tony ask, I see sight unseen offers will not be accepted in agent remarks sometimes. They don't know my client's not there at the appointment. I still make the appointment and they just don't know the client's not with me. I have this last week actually got one under contract where neither of us were in the house. My clients specifically are like, you don't have to go take a video. We're fine with just the pictures. I was like, okay. And now it's under contract and no one cared. But definitely I do make the appointment and go so they don't know that my client's not with me. And then also during the buyer consult, either if it's in person or on Zoom, I do like to set up their MLS search alongside with them. So, you know, screen share and say, here's the map, like tell me what streets you're gonna want to look in, here's the criteria, and see for yourselves what options there are. Like, hey, with your criteria, there are 4 options right now. That's not a lot. Do you want to change something? You know, what do you want to do? Or if they're like, hey, there's 50 options. Hey, that's actually quite a lot of options. I think we'll be good with this search. But it helps you talk right then and there. It's like, hey, let's go check it out. Because if there's only 4 options, you go through them and there's already multiple offers, you know, listed in the description, then it's another good thing for them to see because they are looking at your view, right, on your screen. It's like, hey, actually, this one already has multiple offers due tomorrow. This one already has multiple offers due tomorrow. So they're seeing, hey, in real time, this is how fast the market's working. You're going to have to change something or be willing to put in extraordinary offers.
I also find that when I do the searches sitting next to them or screen sharing with them and they get to see all the things Elizabeth just talked about, I also get a lot less of the, hey, I found this one on Zillow, because they don't question what your search looked like. And they were there with you. They know what the area looked like. They know the price point. They know all the criteria. And so you're getting less of the, you know, them searching at night thinking maybe you missed one. Does that make sense?
I also do like to talk about Zillow, or ask them, hey, what apps are you currently using to look for homes? If they say Zillow, I say, okay, we're going to give you a little lesson on Zillow. On Zillow, they have 3 buckets: active, pending, and sold. In Texas, we have 6 buckets: active, active, open contract, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of them. And so because they don't have as many buckets as Texas does, it only shows active and pending. So that doesn't show you when it's in these other 2 stages. So you're actually looking at 3 times as many homes that are actually available. So please don't look at Zillow. It's going to make you mad because those are not actually available. You can look at our apps. I know that our MLS just changed to that one home portal, which I don't love. So I'm still learning how to use it with clients. But if anything, I tell them check out realtor.com if you have to use an app, because at least it tells them when it's active option contract or active contingent. So yeah, that's my spiel on Zillow. It's like, don't look at it. It's not right. I also give them the whole, in the number of states where Zillow is most accurate, Texas is number 50 with a plus or minus 22% accuracy rate. So there's no point in looking at this estimate. Don't ask me about it. So that's my little Zillow spiel. And they're like, okay, I won't use it. And then if they do send you properties on Zillow and you keep telling them pending, 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 I was like, hey, I told you that these are going to be wrong. They're like, oh yeah, okay, I'll stop using it. But yeah, it's very annoying. Plus or minus 22% accuracy.
Like, wait, that's all right.
Yeah, and you can look it up. There's an article that says all that stuff. So if someone wants the article, just.
I remember like the CEO of Zillow's house was off by like $1 million+, you know, like on his estimate.
Yeah, and that, you know, you have to have those conversations a lot, especially with people moving from other states that are not, what's the word I'm looking for? I have a foggy brain right now. Non-disclosure states. They're just like, Zillow says this. Oh, so you have to explain to them, actually, we're a non-disclosure state. Here's how Zillow works. Here's why it's not accurate. They're only looking at blah, blah. I had to do that with that client from Wisconsin because I had to be like, 2 houses that are next door to each other. If one's an investor and one's an owner occupant, this one's going to be much higher in the tax records than this one. Like, I explain all the things so they can just not bug me about it anymore, right? Because that's one of my biggest pet peeves. But yeah, that's definitely conversations have right now with people that need it. So lastly, I don't know how we are on time. Okay, we got a little bit of time. The last thing I do now, because it used to be the first thing, but now I have to really set expectations and make sure that they're ready, willing, and able buyers, ready to go. If at any point in time they're like, no, I'm not willing to do these things, and it's like, okay, if you're not willing to do these things now and you want to wait a year until the market changes, just realize that even though it'll be less competitive, the price will be higher. Are you okay with that? The prices are still going to go up, even if the market's less competitive. So as long as you understand the prices are going to continue increasing, then that's might be the right strategy for you if you don't like competing right now. And then if they're all like, okay, great, yeah, we're ready to go. then I kind of do what Casey said and say, okay, so I know what I've told you might be discouraging and seem like it's gonna suck to do this process. But you gotta remember that we're not buying a house just because you want a yard for your dog, just because you want, to be able to paint your walls. You're buying a home to build wealth, to build long-term wealth. And this is how most Americans build wealth. And then I just go into the bennies of home ownership, the benefits of home ownership page, especially now that we have the app, which I love. I just opened the BKCO app and all the stuff we already talked to them about it. I just pop it into the app. If you guys don't have it, download the BKCO app. You go to the calculator, the value of home ownership, and you just pop in there, okay, a purchase price of this, down payment of this, loan terms, blah, blah, blah. Like, here's how much. And I go through the whole thing. I'm not going to do it now. We already know that, or at least should know how to do that script in a buyer consult. But now you don't even have to do the math. You can just do it on the app and tell them, this is the reason why we're buying a house now, why we're going through all this, why you're paying, a little bit more if it doesn't appraise. Because even though you think that you're paying more than the home is worth, you're still earning, $20,000 this year by becoming a homeowner. So is it worth paying $5,000 out of pocket to gain $20,000 just in year one? And just go through that whole script. Does everyone do that at their consults? Does everyone do the benefits? And this is a long consult. I set the expectation normally it's going to be an hour plus if they have questions. So it normally takes me a full hour or maybe 45 minutes if they don't have a bunch of questions, but it's much easier to talk as much as possible in this home buyer consult when they're there and listening and trying to explain things along the way. Any questions or anything?
Do you guys think that by having all of this information up front, that what are you doing for the client?
Well, you're preparing them for the market, but you're also setting reasonable expectations. So, one of the scripts that I use a lot is, hey, this is a lot of information and some of it might not be what you were expecting, but I want to make sure as your fiduciary that after this appointment, you're able to move forward with confidence instead of concern. And that will help them because it reinforces the first house you go take them to see in these markets. They're going to have to make some decision either to pass on it or to go with it. And they're going to be like, oh, that's right. That's what Sarissa just told me 2 days ago at this appointment. That's what Elizabeth just told me. And I love how forward Elizabeth is. That's I think a great style for what clients need in this market. And it's just being very direct and getting all the expectations and hurdles out of the way up front. That way you could really go to work for them and just get them under contract.
Yeah.
What else are you doing for the client? Anything else that you guys can think of? What's the benefit to the client of having a long consult up front? Any other benefits?
Well, along the lines of what Brandon said, I do always at the end say, the reason I'm going through all these things is because my job is not to make decisions for you. I'm not living at the house. I'm not paying your mortgage. My job is to make sure that you are the most educated buyer and the most confident buyer so that whenever you make your decisions, you feel very happy with them and happy with the whole process.
Awesome. What do you guys think during this consult that you're doing for you in the long run? What does this consult do for you?
I think a lot of it sets us up to have frank conversations, not "I told you so" conversations, right? But I love using the phrase, "Well, we knew this was going to happen," right? We already talked about this. Like we totally expected this, right? And that's sort of an assumptive close to tie back to what we were talking about, right? But we've already told them the challenges that were going to come up, and when they do, we look like an authority, and then they're not flying off the handle because we already talked about this, and they have to at least pretend like they're being rational,
One other thing I say every once in a while, with that setting expectations, I like to joke, it's really awkward when I have to say I told you so. So let's just do it right the first time and just laugh, right? It's really awkward when I have to say I told you so. So here's how we can be successful the first time. I do that a lot on listing appointments too with pricing.
Perfect. Casey, you kind of, sorry, Brandon, you also mentioned it here. I was getting to like, it saves us time in the long run. Like doing this up front saves you so much time, so many phone calls. So it saves them from going and chatting to their friends and other agents about like what's happening. And then people putting seeds of doubt in their mind, right? And Brandon says here, it builds credibility. It saves us sanity. It saves them sanity. It gives us the ability to serve multiple clients at once. So this is just the smart way to do it. And she's learned this through trial and error. She's gotten more confident and she's realized what she's willing to accept in the long run, and ultimately how she can weed out the people that aren't ready, willing, and able and willing to do what it takes in this market to win, right? So you can have a ready, willing, and able buyer, we've talked about this before, who maybe just isn't willing to do what it takes in this market. And that's okay. But at least you've let them make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that also, like if you do a thorough, 45-minute call or whatever, you've set expectations, you built rapport, they like you, and you come off as competent, they're not going to want to do that with someone else and have to do the whole 45 minutes to an hour. They're already invested in you, so you should have them.
Mm-hmm.
Smart.
Hey, one comment real quick for Elizabeth. I love that you add the bennies at the end for those clients that need to hear it at the end, or maybe that's your entire process now. But it is, in this market, it makes a lot of sense to do that because you have to give them some good news. You got to give them some maybe not bad news, but real news that they might consider bad. And then you hit them with the benefits at the end to say, well, even though blah, blah, blah. I really love that. I usually don't do it that way, but I think I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah, I didn't used to do it that way, but I just noticed that I was spending a lot of time on the negative things in the beginning that I'm just like, okay, we got to make them remember what the good things are.
Yeah, 100%. I
also use the buyer consult book a lot, and I don't know if you guys have the new one or have used the new one. At the end, there are note pages on there. So I normally give it to them at the beginning to take notes. There you go, Casey, thanks. To take notes, I was like, hey, here's the last 2 pages, take notes. And then they're taking notes throughout the whole thing. And then at the end, I just take it back and just use that benefits of home ownership page. And the rest of the things are things you've already talked about normally. I don't go through each page, but those are the 2 things in the book that I like using.
Elizabeth, can you speak a little bit on how you approach the multiple offer conversation? And by that, I mean before you're making offers, after you've made a few and lost a few, and how you're going to improve them next time.
So I've gotten really good at having this conversation up front of, hey, here's how it's going to work. I'm going to give you, I'm going to run comps. I'm going to give you a suggestion on price. And then you have to decide how much above that are you willing to go, because I have no data to support what homes are selling for. They're selling for way more than what they're listed for, what previous homes have listed for. So I'm going to give you a base of minimum. You have to at least do this. Then you have to decide how much more you're willing to offer on a house. And it's going to depend on the market, but like in the market in that particular neighborhood. But I tell them, if we lose 1 or 2 and we're in like first or second, second or third place, then we're pretty close. We can keep going on that strategy. But if we're not even getting in the top, we're going to have to change our strategy, look at lower price points, look in different areas. Are you okay with that? And for the most part, I haven't, like anything that's in like crazy multiple offers after 2 or 3 lost. I also like to put it in their ear of new construction. And again, it's going to take a long time, but I was like, if you're getting sick of this, there's always new construction here that matches your criteria. And that's happened twice where clients are just like, let's just do that. I don't want to do this anymore. So that's another like little strategy I use. And I know right now it's hard to find new construction, but it's possible. So that's kind of my go-to whenever they're just not able to make. And we don't know, right? Like that's what my issue is. It's like, we're making great offers and yet people are still coming in higher, and it just makes no sense. It makes like there's no data, right? It's really hard for us to advise our clients on multiple offers right now if they're going for $100,000 more than the house is worth. it's like, how can you advise someone? So just have, I would say, have other plan Bs and stuff in order. Hey, we're still not in the top 4. Let's change, like, what do you want to do? Look in a different area, look in a different price, or go to new construction. Because it's crazy right now.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
What are
But
like,
I would say like 3 offers in the same like criteria is kind of all I do. It's like, hey, we've made 3 offers. We're not getting the top. We need to change. I don't continue doing it. And normally I make those 3 offers in the same weekend. Like I tell them, you know, worst case scenario, you'll have to pay your option fee if we happen to go under contract on 2 on the exact same time, but that's never happened to me. So let's go ahead and make multiple offers. And then again, you're
Come on, Becky.
fast.
You're not getting out, Angel. Come on.
Daniel, I need you. Helen and Ben, keep up.
Elizabeth,
This is for me.
just to be clear, when you're saying you're telling them a suggested price, you're telling them a certain amount over the asking price is what you think you need to go in, and then anything else other than that, what are you comfortable with?
One comes for the like a price, but then look at how much over asking a neighborhood's going for. So if a neighborhood on average is going for 105% over asking, I add that to it, to like the comp price, and say minimum you have to do this. This is what's trending in the neighborhood. But you can also say, but it's gone as far as 115% over asking. So you have to decide how much this home is worth to you. And it's not any much easier conversation than you think once you've set all these other expectations. Are like, okay, it's worth $25,000 extra for me to get this home.
Well, you know what I love too? When you're sitting there doing the search with them and you've narrowed down maybe an area, just go over and click on the solds and then do a quick report and show them, hey, okay, you're looking in this area. There's 4 on the market right now. When we look at the solds in the past 30 days, they're going for an average of 105, % list price to sales price ratio, with the high being 115. I want you to kind of get in your mind what market you're entering. And you're showing them, and it's not hearsay, it's literally they can see the data, right? They can see it themselves. And so therefore it's they're learning to trust you when your word is lining up with the information that they can see.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that you guys feel like we either missed or we didn't talk about, or questions you have for Elizabeth of how she would handle something at the consult? Okay. What are like 1 or 2 like ta-da, like mind-blowing, like, oh shoot, didn't think of that? Anything that kind of comes to mind that we just want to reinforce?
Well, I think a new standard for coaching for me is going to be putting the benefits of homeownership at the end of the consult and using the calculator to do it. That's just, I think that'll be standard across the board.
Cool. Anything else as we wrap up?
Set expectations. That's what you walk away with today. That's awesome.
All right, you guys, thank you for making time for this. Let's power up. If you can, unmute. Have a wonderful day. 1, 2, power up, power up, power up. Bye, Texas.
Bye, y'all.
Hello.